Salamanca Markets, the home of local Tasmanian industry and specialty produce. Handicrafts. Tasmanian timbers. Specialty ciders. If it's Tasmanian, you'll find it here. One such product is Leatherwood honey, a uniquely Tasmanian honey which has recently found its footing in the international market. Leatherwood honey comes from the flowers of the leatherwood tree, an endemic Tasmanian understory rainforest tree. Leatherwood honey accounts for 70% of honey produced in Tasmania, making the leatherwood tree the single most important tree for those in the beekeeping industry. However, the leatherwood tree is currently the centre of fierce debate. The clear fell burn and sow process, carried out by state forestry, has severely impacted the number of trees available to farmers, and may have consequences for the longevity of the industry. In order to gain a better understanding of the issues involved, I talked to Peter Norris, President of the Southern Tasmanian Beekeepers Association and co-owner of Heritage Honey. What makes the leatherwood honey distinct from other types of honey?
It's a really floral honey, very aromatic and quite spicy. And in 2015 it was voted the world's best honey at the Apimondia conference in Korea. It's an iconic brand, but the Asians have just discovered leatherwood in the last 4 or 5 years. And we couldn't supply demand now if we had the original resource. They love our leatherwood honey. And we have a world monopoly on it. It's the only place in the world it grows. And it beggars belief that people are clear fell burning it.
However, leatherwood honey is not only important for its unique flavour, but for the timing of its collection. The leatherwood tree flowers much later than other trees, which allows the bees to have honey for food and for collection all year round. How important is leatherwood for the honey industry?
Without leatherwood, you've got no honey industry. You only have hobby beekeepers. And the reason for that is because the flowering sequence finishes at the end of December, except for the leatherwood. Leatherwood flowers very late, January, February, and sometimes March. It enables us to take all the honey out of the hives at the end of December, which is our spring honey, and then move to the leatherwood, and we get 2 takes on the leatherwood, and then we still get our winter stores. So our season on leatherwood finishes at the end of March, and the bees have only got to go from the end of March to September. If you don't have leatherwood, they've got to go from the end of December to the end of September, and that's 9 months. So you have to leave most of the honey on the hives in order for them to last that long through the winter.
So where are most of the hives located?
It's mainly down the west coast. Our particular sites are out around the back of Mount Field, Strathgordon, Mount Wedge. But further up the coast, Strawn, other beekeepers operate all the way from Strawn north up through the Tarkine. But we've lost about 80% of the leatherwood resource that was there originally. And to give you an example, there used to be thousands of hives north of the Arthur River, and that's all been clear felled and burnt, and there's no hives north of the Arthur River anymore.
Tasmanian beekeepers have been in discussion with the Minister for Environment and Parks and the Minister for Primary Resources in regard to their concerns. One response of the government has been to suggest honey farmers could expand their industry into reserve land, World Heritage or National Parks area. The TWA, Tasmanian Wilderness World Heritage Area, is one such option.
You know, we definitely support them. We recognise their importance, and you know, the TWA management plan, as an example, has zoned areas where they can continue to have access and where there's potential for expansion for them in that area. And absolutely outside of the TWA on reserve land, we're happy to allow them to continue to have the access that they've always had, and for them to look for expansion.
However, access to these lands is difficult because they are reserved wilderness regions, intended to remain untouched, and therefore suitable access to these regions is very costly.
At the moment, you know, one of the big issues is that part of the reason why the Twa is recognised as a World Heritage Area is because of the natural values and the cultural values that are contained within it, and the natural values are, as I said earlier, in a fairly intact state. So an issue for the bee industry is that within that area there are a number of roads, but there aren't a large number of roads, because, as I said, part of the reason why it was declared a World Heritage Property is because it's very intact, and that means that it hasn't got a lot of signs of human impact. So for the industry, wherever there are roads, that's where their access is largely restricted. Potentially, we've allowed in the new management plan for an increase of hive sites on those roads, but we also have allowed that they could look at other opportunities for getting hive sites in. So, for example, they could use helicopters to fly the hives in, or they could possibly barge them up on some of the river systems. But obviously that's a much more expensive exercise, and they'd have to look at the cost benefit of doing that.
While increased access to leatherwood in non-forestry areas may be part of the solution, it fails to address the primary concern of the leatherwood industry, which is the continued use of the clear fell, burn and sow method.
So why are they able to be clear felled and burnt? Is it because they're in state forestry area?
The majority of the leatherwood resource was in forestry. It's not now, because they've clear felled and burnt it all. Up until 1964, we had a very good relationship with the loggers. We used to follow them through the bush because they used to carry out selective logging. In 1964, they changed to clear fell, burn and sow. And eucalypts regenerate after clear fell, burn and sow, but the minor species, leatherwood, blackwood, sassafras, myrtle, they don't.
Yet despite continued meetings with the government, the industry feels its concerns are not being adequately heard and understood.
We've had meetings with Guy Barnett, and they haven't been very fruitful at all. The second meeting we had was 95% of it was spent talking on a telephone conference to representatives from Minister Groom's office, and a follow-up meeting with Colin Shepherd indicated their lack of understanding of the industry.
So what do you think needs to be done to allow the industry to grow?
They need to stop clear fell, burn and sow.
The Tasmanian leatherwood tree is unique in the world, and the honey it produces is a Tasmanian treasure. This industry is under threat because of the practice of clear fell, burn and sow practiced by forestry. To date, the honey industry does not feel that the government has properly understood the issues it faces or its concern, and the option of accessing World Heritage areas is no long-term solution. This is an area in which the government and industry need to do more work so that Tasmanians, and indeed the whole world, can continue to enjoy this Tasmanian treasure.